Our topic today is about weight loss plateaus. Let me know in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram if you've ever gone through a weight loss plateau yourself. It can feel so frustrating and so confusing to be doing all the right things and then all of a sudden feel like you have stopped your progress. And it can drive someone crazy to be figuring out all of this, right? And why you're doing the same thing. You're doing all the right things, but you are not progressing. And so we're going to talk about that, some strategies as to how to get out of this weight loss plateau. Because in the beginning, especially if you had more than 10 pounds to lose, you can start to notice some pretty fast weight loss. Okay. That's normal. Especially if you are in a deficit of I always recommend 200 to 300 calories a day. More than that, it becomes harder to maintain. And that frame will help you release about zero point 0.5 pounds a week. And you'll be on your way to losing about 3 to 4 pounds a month. That is healthy, it's sustainable, and you can do that with a combination of nutrition and with exercise. Okay. I personally have found that doing both of those things together is the most sustainable because you might not be able to do 300 calories worth of exercise every single day. Some of you can, okay? And I love that. So let's get into the strategies of how to get out of a weight loss plateau. And this is exactly what a client had asked me just a few weeks ago. And so let's go into it. All right. So the big aspect of this is when you only have about 5 to 10 pounds left to lose, it gets harder. It gets harder because if you are already healthy and you don't technically need to lose any weight, well, then you have to put in a little bit more work than you normally would have. Maybe you still have about 30 or 40 pounds to go, for example, or 20. You are still going to need to be following these same principles, okay? So the very first one I want to chat with you about is to track everything. This is going to be really important. I want you to use something free. You don't need to pay for them, but something like Lose It, something like MyFitnessPal. And I want you to track absolutely everything. This is going to go in from the sliver of cheese that you put on, to the crumble of feta on your salad, to the olive oil that you saute your vegetables or meat in, to the bite of your kids' food's leftovers, to the extra drink that you picked up, in the middle of the day that you didn't normally have before. I want you to track everything, and including vegetables. Technically, you could gain weight from eating too much broccoli. You could gain weight from eating too many blueberries. I know it sounds crazy, okay, and maybe that's just me because I used to think, this is in my own lack of awareness and education, that I'm like, okay, well, if it's healthy, then you can have lots of it and you won't gain weight. That is false, because at the end of the day, you are ingesting more caloric density than you actually need, than you're expending. So while it's harder to get 1,000 calories of blueberries than it is to get 1,000 calories of French fries, you still need to pay attention to fruits and vegetables. And this is something that I've had a pitfall in, and I see clients as well who don't track their vegetables. But I want you to track everything, and you will notice that those little tiny pieces actually can add up to 100 to 400 or sometimes more calories. So that alone can help you get out of your weight loss plateau, because your body gets used to what you're already doing. Okay, and that's really why you start to get a plateau. Maybe it's hormonal, that you actually are bloated. You can also be putting on muscle at the same time, so the scale is not moving as well, and you're not noticing, like maybe you're doing some bicep curls or whatever it is. You might not notice that your width or any inches are coming off. So that's another reason you can be in a plateau. Okay, but really we have to change things up. We have to insert a new stimulus. That's either eating less, it's exercising more, we're looking at sleep, etc. So we're going to go into that. But the first and foremost thing is to look and track absolutely everything temporarily until you start to notice where those sneaky calories are coming in from. And yeah, if you really only have 5 or 10 pounds to lose, that does mean not having that breakfast muffin. That does mean maybe having coffee black, or that does mean not having any trail mix, even a few pieces, right? This is the thing, is that weight loss is hard. I didn't realize it because I have released over. I'm sure I touched 200 pounds at one point, but before then, when I had weighed myself, I was 189 pounds, and so currently I am less than um, or in that 140, 142 range. Okay. And that was, it was actually easy at first because I focused on some of the things I'm about to share, but there comes a point where you start to get really, really nitpicky. Okay. So, now, when it comes to also tracking everything, the second point of this is to increase your protein intake, not at the cost of increasing calories, which is what I did. I would really just focus on protein alone and not even think about the calories. But if you are eating more protein and then you eat more calories, you're also going to be at a plateau. So you want to make sure that you're still eating at a calorie deficit. And now the recommendation from the RDA is the RDA recommendation is about 50 to 56 grams of protein per day, but that totally depends on how tall you are, how active you are, what goals you have, your age, because you are going to need completely different requirements in just a general broad scope. Okay. And there are some sources that say you can have 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. This is where having that one-on-one support is so, so important. Okay. Now, protein is going to help keep you fuller longer. If you're building muscle at the same time, it's going to help build muscle. Protein is not going to necessarily build muscle mass if you're not on purpose doing hypertrophy, so breaking down muscle to gain muscle. Okay, so that's a really big one too, is really making sure that you are prioritizing protein at each meal. That's also going to be absolutely really important for our body composition as well. The other part of this is to stay hydrated. I know you've probably heard this before. I know you've heard this before if you're watching a health video, but this is absolutely key. And I cannot tell you how many times in practice I see that people are dehydrated, not drinking enough water, or not even in practice, even when I'm out and about and I'm spending time with friends and family, most people are not drinking enough water. And that alone can make your bowels sluggish, and you're retaining feces essentially, and that can also get you in a plateau. You're not moving bowels, and you might be bloated as well, which is not going to help the scale move as well. Really, really big. Of course, another big aspect of this is to look at your urine and really look at the color. If it's dark yellow or even yellow, you're not drinking enough water. Okay, so let's increase that water intake, and you will notice not only your bowel movements better, but your skin better, your thought process much better as well. Okay, and it helps to not have other liquid calories at the same time. Another big aspect of this is to amplify bliss. Some people call that stress management. I find that to be so boring because it's hard. How do you manage stress? Okay, like I get what the philosophy is saying. However, I like to look at it as amplifying bliss. The stress will always be inevitable, but if we look at amplifying bliss in our life, that's when the body starts to relax. Okay, and amplifying bliss is going to look different for different people. A lot of the time, I will say, beauty relaxes a woman, and a relaxed woman is a healthy woman. And so that could look like beauty in terms of how you look and how you take care of yourself. That could look like beauty in terms of having fresh flowers or a mug, or just really caring about the aesthetics of your clothing, your jewelry, whatever it is. But also, what kind of scents relax you? Is it having a lavender scent? Is it having perfume and you feel good and confident and that's relaxing to you? Is it that you go for long walks versus a yoga class versus Pilates versus, running, whatever it is for you? You have to find that one thing that is really going to be impactful for amplifying bliss. And for me, it truly is long, long walks and weight training. I love both of those things, and they really help clear my mind and make me feel much better. And the issue that comes with having stress built up is that people like myself, and maybe you can relate, is we can turn to food when things get stressful. Okay. And then that in itself, you could be in a calorie deficit all day, you could be exercising, drinking water, sleeping well, but then turn to food. And that adds up real quick. And I don't know about you, but I have never emotionally eaten chicken breast. It's always something high in carbohydrate and sugar. Okay. So there's that. Now, that also, so when we have high levels of stress, that also starts to impact belly fat because estrogen, this is also genetic, but it tends to hang out in the hips and thighs versus cortisol will hang out in the face, the back, the upper arms, and the belly. Okay, so that's also why this is so important, and that cortisol will really inhibit you from losing weight. Okay, if you are concerned about cortisol levels, you can get testing. It's not always necessary, and for most people, unless they have some kind of condition or hormonal issue, then testing is not always necessary. Okay. Another part of this is to incorporate a maintenance phase. So making sure that you do take 1 to 2 weeks between your rapid weight loss to stabilize. I find that mentally this is really important to get really in a space where you feel comfortable at this weight. You are not doing anything crazy, outrageous when it comes to your weight loss as well, because I'm telling you, I know it can be easier to not eat and I'll exercise a lot, but as soon as that phase is over and a stressful life event happens, you're traveling, it's the holidays, then you end up having a binge cycle. You see this with bodybuilders. I've seen this with myself as well. The more extreme that you actually end up having a deficit, that kind of comes and bites you in the butt again. Okay. So having a 1 to 2 week maintenance phase and you're eating, you're not trying to lose any weight, you're not trying to gain any weight either, but then you have that phase and then you reduce calories again. Now, I have people tell me that they don't eat very much and they're still gaining weight. That is a possibility if perhaps you have a thyroid condition, if you are having any other kinds of challenges when it comes to your health, that can very much be the case. But I do want to point you back to point number one about tracking because it can seem like you're not eating a lot. And I know for me, we're like, oh, I only ate some fruit and some salad and that was good. But then I don't actually realize that all those little bites in between, all those little snacks can add up. And a lot of the time, we can also think that we have burnt off those calories from a walk or a workout, but that walk or workout was only maybe 50 to 90 calories lost. Even if your time or your watch or the cardio machine tells you otherwise, it would not really bank on your exercise in terms of reducing calories unless you are an athlete, unless you are going for a climb, for example. And again, what happens there? You go for a hike and then you have trail mix, and about fourth of a cup of trail mix is going to, depending on the hike, of course, maybe even put you back into gaining weight. Okay, so I want you to be mindful of how many calories that you're eating with these kinds of foods. Okay, so we have talked about tracking everything, including vegetables, including those little bites and those little slices of cheese or nuts or whatever it is, increasing protein intake, really depending on your body weight goals. And this is where I love being able to help my clients understand your protein requirements, how much you should be eating. But honestly, a big part of this is also looking at what you're currently eating and just eat a little bit less. Okay. Prioritizing protein, staying hydrated, amplifying bliss, and incorporating those maintenance routines and those maintenance phases will do wonders. And you might need to incorporate a different kind of exercise at first if you can maintain it. But really, you do have to be challenging your body. If you have any specific questions for me, please let me know below. I also actually want to, before I close off, mention about sleep as well. If you are not sleeping well, that can also throw off your ghrelin levels, your leptin levels, cortisol levels, human growth hormone, and they can actually, so not sleeping enough can not make you repair adequately in time or recover at the gym. It can also increase cravings. It can also increase your stress hormones. It can change your choices of food as well. So sleep hygiene is really, really big. And I'm going to drop the episode of my most recent podcast on sleeping like a baby, because sleep is absolutely crucial to really start to optimize your all cylinders of your fat loss goals. Okay, listening and watching, and I will see you next week. Mwah. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Please give the show a 5-star review if you feel like you learned something new today. All of the mentioned links will be in the show notes. And also, are we connected on Instagram? Find me over at _Luscious Living_ and come say hi. See you next episode.